Hello everybody, and welcome to another Citect webinar, where today we'll be looking at how you can integrate your Citect SCADA system with AVEVA Insight. My name is Tim Harrison, and I'm one of the system architects here at Solutions PT. So our agenda for today will be just a little overview into AVEVA Insight, then looking at the Citect Historian connector, the installing and configuring of that. Then we'll take a closer look at the AVEVA Insight application, and then look into the Insight performance, briefly touch on security, and that will conclude our webinar. So AVEVA Insight is based on the Wonderware Historian, and as it says there's so much more. It's just been restructured and re-architected to run in the cloud, and is available as a software as a service, which is also financially backed as a software level agreement. It's also powered with new desktop and mobile clients that will help visualize and analyze your plant or process data. So if we take a look, having AVEVA Insight will enable you to make decisions quicker. There is no requirement to spend and procure on server hardware, operating systems, and configuring of that. So it will reduce your capital costs. As soon as you've connected your SCADA system into AVEVA Insight, you can actually start to monitor and manage and support your continuous improvement program. It also assists with diagnosing and troubleshooting. And of course, importantly, it allows you to share and collaborate with the team. Here are some of the hardware technologies that already support the AVEVA Insight. Some of those names obviously jump out. There are obviously some new names in that mix. Here are now a list of software publishers that already exist in various AVEVA HMIs, historians, and other asset and operation management systems. We also have standalone publisher, which supports over 300 drivers to various PLCs and RTUs. And AVEVA Insight also supports the Open Internet Standard, as well as a software development kit for custom connectivity. So when looking for AVEVA Insight, it can be found at this website, AVEVA Insight Connect. And here you can actually try it for free and learn more about the actual AVEVA Insight software. Or you can actually just sign up for a 45-day free account and start testing your SCADA system connectivity. So if we just jump right into that and actually look at the Citect Historian connector, how we go about installing and configuring that. As I said, you navigate to online.wonderware.com. That will bring you to this landing page. You'll create an account, which can either be within the US or the European data centers. Upon logging in, there is a Insight sort of help page that pops up, where you can discover how Insight works and look at the various features. One of them that we're going to look at right now is actually the connectivity, how to add data into Insight. It supports other SCADA systems, InTouch HMI, Historian, and Edge. But if I click on Citect SCADA, it starts to walk me through a few pointers, what I need to start to do to my Citect system. I need to obviously set some tags to historize. I also need to enable certain Citect INI parameters, such as the CT API, remote. And it also gives me a link to download the Citect SCADA connector. It's not a large program. It quickly downloads. And as a zip file, I will now look to extract that So just simple extract to my folder. And once it's done that, it will present us with the Citect SCADA connector executable and a PDF help file. When I go to install that file, it also looks to check if I have a previously installed connector. Here I've got version 2.10. I do need to uninstall that connector before continuing. So uninstalling that, just quickly from the program, add and modify programs within your Windows environment. Now let me install the Citect SCADA connector version 3. So quickly run through that. Once we've installed that connector successfully, it is possible that your machine might need a reboot. You can now go and configure your Citect application. So here I'm using the example project within Citect, and the first thing I need to do is to navigate to my trend tags and look for the Historize column, which isn't there in this view, but I can obviously enable that just within the with the ID environment, and then I'll just quickly sort my existing tags just to see which ones have been set for true, and I've got roughly 36 tags currently set for historizing. Obviously, as in when you require additional tags, you can simply go and look in the property section and just change it from blank to true, or keep it false. But this does need to be flagged for sending the data to the AVEVA Insight. The other parameter that it sort of guided us to set was within the Citect INI file. So if we open up the editor and we type CT API, it gives us a selection of parameters that we can then tweak. One of them is the remote, CT API remote, which obviously allows other computers to access the Citect computer. So I need to set that value to a 1 and add that parameter and then save my INI file. I'm now in a position to compile and run my Citect project and then continue into configuring that Citect connector. So with Citect running, I open up my Citect SCADA connector, and I need to select the Settings tab, and I need to enter my IP address of my Citect SCADA. This can usually be found within the topology section of your project. Here I'm just using a loopback IP address, but most of you would have a 192 or a 10.10. Whatever your IP address is, this is what you would enter within your primary CT API server. It does support redundancy, as you can see there, with a standby box. I enter in a username and password as declared in my Citect project, and when I start my connector, it will give you confirmation that it has actually connected to Citect. I now need to set up my historian, so I can either choose to log my data to an on-premise historian or to the AVEVA cloud. As soon as I select this option, it will stop logging data to my on-premise historian and will start to reroute that data to the cloud-based historian. So I proceed with registering an account with AVEVA Insight, which brings me to a login screen. So I need to select my region, which will be North America in my example. I have an existing account, so I'll be selecting that. With my login credentials, I will enter that now onto the, when prompted. Put in my password. Once I've successfully logged in, it will ask me for a application to group my data under. So I'm just going to call this Citect example. And I'm basically publishing my application to AVEVA Insight under that name. Once I've completed that step, I can save that configuration step, and it will ask me to restart the connector as I've changed the settings. It will reconnect itself to the Citect SCADA system and then continue with connecting then to the online AVEVA Insight. So once we've done that, we can actually now, through the AVEVA Insight web page, go through to the home screen, and this will be covering a little bit more in detail into the functionality and features provided by AVEVA Insight. But obviously it would be good for us to actually validate that that data source has been added. So if I go to the administration section of AVEVA Insight and select my data source, amongst others, what I'm looking for is the Citect example data source that I created. And as you can see, it was last updated in this example 3 minutes ago. So I am very confident now that I've got a successful publishing application, and now I'm able to just quickly browse for some Citect tags within the AVEVA Insight search bar. So if I type kilowatts, a lot of my tags were power related, and just those simple 2 letters, I can have a look that there are roughly 24 engineering units or descriptions with kilowatts, and there they all are, all Citect example, cluster 1, very much Citect naming, tag naming tags, and I can then add those to a content page. So that's really as easy as it is. Within less than 10 minutes, I've installed the connector, configured it to connect to my Citect SCADA system, created an account with AVEVA Insight, and am now uploading real-time values. So let's take a closer look into AVEVA Insight. Here is a example landing page or home page where I can see there's already been some suggested content created relating to Valley Clearwell quality, mountain pump status, etc. From here, we've already experienced this. It supports an intelligent search bar. So this is any part of a name or a engineering unit, a description can be typed here. There is no requirement now to know the exact SCADA or PLC tag in order to view its data. AVEVA Insight also supports providing a news feed where it starts to analyze the data being logged and then reports back whether that value is lower or higher than usual, as can be seen in this example. It also supports the map presentation when looking at distributed assets. You can quite easily zoom in and zoom out in this page to look at your various assets and what KPIs are currently being shown. Here is a simple line chart, but just to the right, if I click, I can select maybe more appropriate charts to view this data. Once I've created my chart, I'm also able to give my chart more meaning using some keywords, which will help me to collect or group my various charts and content in order to create a more appropriate dashboard. Which this is now an example of that dashboard. It basically looked for keywords associated to the mountain water site and has brought through this summary, or has been able to create this dashboard with these summary values. We're also able to stack charts within the AVEVA Insight. Here I've got four different process variables, all being stacked with their own different vertical axes ranges. I have tools such as being able to pan and zoom within my chart. And I can also take a mouse or touch screen and obviously do a zoom selection into a specific part of a chart. I'm still given the usual vertical finder bar, where obviously moving it left and right will update the values at that point in time. At the bottom, you can quite easily adjust very quickly the range, the time range or time base that you want to be able to view these trend tags, or you can even customize your own time span. Once you've created this content, part of the power of AVEVA Insight is actually being able to share this very easily with others, and it supports obviously sharing to an intranet website, or embedding it, downloading it into CSV, or obviously filing that so that others can view the same trend information. Moving on into AVEVA Insight Performance. AVEVA Insight Performance is a very user-friendly way to basically start to look at equipment efficiency and OEE analysis. So in this screenshot, we have a case packer which has the following OEE KPIs for availability, performance, and quality. Currently, the equipment is in an unplanned downtime. We have produced 241 of 720 cases, and gives us a Gantt chart almost of the various stoppages, running states that case packer has actually experienced. We're also able to look at the production events. This would basically be how much good or bad quantities have actually been produced at this location. And obviously this gives the operator at this station where this client would be most likely to be positioned, the ability to edit the running or downtime state, and sort of either split it between maybe the case packer actually wasn't running this whole time. In actual fact, there was a stoppage or a unplanned downtime. The operator can go back and actually amend this event. We're also able to see the top 5 downtime reasons by count, as well as by duration, as can be seen here. There was only one outfeed jam in the top section of this page, but in actual fact that took 10 minutes to be resolved. So quite easily, it's not just about the number of times that happened, but very much the duration. And then you get a nice time summary of running downtime and basically paused or non-production time. We're also able to look at the equipment utilization as displayed here, where each pieces of my equipment is kind of very much compared to the other from an availability point of view. So you can actually again start to identify your sort of problem areas or challenging pieces of equipment that are not performing to what you would like them to. We're also able to get an OEE analysis. This again is obviously a combination and a calculation within the availability, the performance, and quality of that asset. Part of the tools that I spoke about briefly in the beginning was also the ability to have insight on a mobile device or tablet. The AVEVA app is downloadable from the either the Android or Apple Store, and can give you the full functionality that you get with a desktop app, even though it's in a condensed form. You're also able to get alerts sent through to your mobile device for when parameters are exceeding their normal set point or position. Obviously, an important factor when dealing with cloud-based solutions is the security. First, the data, when it's at rest, is all encrypted, and the protection of each customer's data is handled independently. When the data is in motion, it is encrypted with the SSL, TLS, as you see here. It supports the industry standard of port 443, which is an outbound-only port, and also uses the AES 256 and the 2048-bit X509 certificates. For more information on this, I recommend you go to this hyperlink, sw.aveva.com/trust/security, where there is a lot more information surrounding the security aspects of AVEVA Insight. So I think with that, it brings us to the end of this webinar. And if anyone has any questions, it will be good to hear them.
Thanks for that, Tim. Just through your presentation then, you mentioned that you can use the connector to either store data from Citect locally or to the cloud. Is there a way that I could still store data, or store data to both, or store data to my local historian and then send that onto the cloud?
That's a really good question. Thanks, Andy. Basically, the answer to that is yes. So I would, first of all, log my Citect data to my local historian on site, and then from my Wonderware historian, I would replicate that data then to AVEVA Insight. That way you have the best of both worlds and have obviously all your local historizing is there. Your clients are still querying that historian for all its data. And then, of course, your remote workers or managers are obviously able to then securely look at the data from the cloud. So thanks for that.
Thanks, Sam.
Line unmuted.
That brings us to the end of this webinar. Thank you very much for your time, and have a good day.